to Enlightenment of Change on webtalkradio.com. I'm your host, Connie Whitman. You know that my guests and I are excited to share our show with you today. Now, as you listen to the show, listen, we get it. That word change alone, I think, throws people into a freaking tailspin, especially if that change is something that's thrust upon us and it's not chosen by us. So in the show notes, I have my communication style assessment. I have learned in the past 40 years, my working career, that if we could communicate more effectively with those that we work with, deal with personally and professionally, life just becomes a heck of a lot easier. So no matter what change is thrown at you, you're able to show up in a calmer manner. So that link is in the show notes. You get reports and a ton of information. You get emails from me with tips and ideas and strategies. Again, change is hard. Let's make it a smidge easier. That link is in the show notes for you, my gift to you. Now, my motivational quote to set the stage for the conversation, it's actually by two, James Belasco and Ralph Stayer. And they say, change is hard because people overestimate the value of what they have and underestimate the value of what they may gain by giving that up. Now, each week, as I pause to reflect, obviously, on my own life and business and all the changes that needed to happen through the years to be able to sustain and ultimately hope, grow my business. Well, here's the secret I've learned. All progress requires change. The other thing I've learned is that we just can't do it alone. So if you've ever felt stuck, uncertain, frustrated with problems, poor performance, or challenging opportunities, trust that you can create a clear path forward, accelerate the progress, which is always wonderful, and achieve your goals, and help others ultimately do the same. So I'm excited to share this week's guest, Tim Rhode, and we're gonna dig in again. This is the second time on the show, so don't worry. In the show notes, I'm going to put that link as well, so you can listen to that. We kind of did a macro view. Now we're going to dig in and do a little bit of a micro view of our topic, because he just published a book. So straight out of his book, it's called Changing Lanes for Business. Tim and I, we're going to dig in and talk about his simple, proven 4-step approach to lead to successful change with confidence. And that's for the rest of your career. Tim is a successful business consultant, author, speaker, and leadership coach with more than 35 years of entrepreneurial experience. And he has launched and led multiple 7- and 8-figure high service level businesses, helping thousands of customers and hundreds of team members to transform their lives. Now, personally and professionally, with positive change, coaching leaders and teams in dozens of industries to overcome challenges and get from where they are now to where they want to be. So, Tim, thanks for coming back on the show. We had such a great conversation. I felt it was important for us to, after your book launch, to have another conversation just to talk about some real results that people are getting. So thank you so much for being on.
My pleasure, Connie. Thanks for having me back. It was just a joy to be on last time. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yes, and I'm excited because I was part of the launch team, and you got to bestseller 4 categories. Did I get that right?
Yes, it launched as a bestseller in 4 different categories: communication management, business systems and planning, strategic management, and business teams. So it hit Love 4 of our top 5 categories right out of the gate.
Nice. And that's really what it's all about, right? Business communication, sales, changing lanes, all of the things you and I talk about. It's personal, and we have to have these skills. So I'm so excited that you landed in all 4 categories. Congrats. Really proud of you.
Thank you very much. And so far, all of the reviews have been 5 stars. So that's what you hold your breath, sort of waiting to see how the world is going to welcome your ideas or your approach. And so far, it's just been straight A. So I'm very, very happy with that.
What are some of I'm just curious, because you get to read, right? I downloaded the book, read it, and then was able to write my review. How has the book been received? Like, what is the feedback? What are some of the reviews that you're getting? And, were you shocked by any of them?
The reviews have been terrific. I've gotten them from people, some of the people I know of, and others I hadn't heard of before, but the feedback that I'm seeing, and there's a few common threads, but it captured what I was really striving to accomplish, which was to simplify the notion of change and you know, because you looked at the book, it's actually written as a parable. So rather than a business book that's, you know, like nuts A to Z, which is how I started, I decided to write it more as a parable. And there's a little story behind that, but I decided to write it as a parable, and people enjoy tracing the journey of this manager, Charlie, as he goes through this process of going from struggling to success, from, you know, frustration to forward progress by using these 4 principles.
I love it. Did everybody like the parable? Was that?
Yeah, I haven't heard any detractors yet. I mean, people are saying it's easy to read, easy to follow. They like the concepts and the 4 steps of leading successful change, which I analogize, I simplify down to what you do when you're driving, right? So change doesn't have to be hard. And by making it similar to something people already know how to do, they're really getting it. And that's kind of been a common thread in the reviews, like, oh, now I get it, or, you know, this makes it really easy to understand and easy to apply, which was really my goal. I mean, I made much of my career out of trying to take things that are overcomplicated and simplify them. And that really was a goal of mine here. I realized that all progress requires change. So if I help people, help business leaders with one thing, it would be to succeed with that. So the story behind the parable is that I started writing the book about 3 years ago, and I ran into a friend, and I was talking with him about the concept of the book. And he says, you know, what you really should do is you should launch a coaching program, like an online coaching program, which I did not deliver. I was more of an in-person consultant. So, and he said, you'd gain the experience, you'd get some, you know, you'd have people going through it. It sounds like a great thing. So I decided to do that. And in the process, I went back to the book and decided to make the book like a story about somebody going through the process of learning it.
Love it.
And so that, and some of the best lessons I've learned as a business leader myself have been through some of these parable books. So I had never written anything like that. It took me a little while to get in the groove, but once I got started, I really couldn't stop. It was just fun making this a story about discovery. And it's actually, it's an amalgamation of maybe a half a dozen different actual real life experiences that people have had going through it. So it's kind of a hybrid story that blends like the top lessons and revelations that people have gotten when they've gone through the book.
One of my all-time favorite books is The Alchemist, which is a parable about life change, right? And it's you just got to keep putting one foot in front of the other, but it's such a great life lesson because that's life, and nobody escapes the reality, right, of life and process and progress and whatever else. So all right, you've talked about the book, talked about the coaching. So if I'm understanding, the coaching program you actually launched first and then went back and wrote the book, or you had the outline of the book and then did the program?
I had the outline of the book. You know, I knew I've been using the changing lanes approach
Personally.
myself for years, and it's evolved. Like, it wasn't a light switch. This was like one of those 30-year revelations, right? Where you keep looking back and you realize that when you take out all the unnecessary bother out of leading change, it really boils down to 3 or 4 things that you really need to do well. And so when I designed the program, I designed it around that same approach. And then knowing that people are so strapped for time, it's the most precious commodity we've got these days, right? Everybody's increasingly strapped for time. I took the coaching program, which was, you know, originally on a track to be like a 3 to 6 month program in 12 weeks, 24 weeks, something like that, high ticket. I said, well, how quick could I do this? Like, what's my MVP? And so I realized that I could deliver 4 steps in 4 weeks.
Oh,
And
I love it.
and that was what I wanted to test. So it was a test for me. And so I distilled it down to, can I deliver each step in an hour on Zoom over 4 weeks? And then to make sure it was working, I put in an hour long or 45 minutes or an hour, whatever somebody needs, a personal coaching program with me. So if I've got 8 or 10 people going through the program, I do them in small groups, that I share the lesson with everybody in an hour long Zoom. And then somewhere else during the week, they book a private coaching call with me. And what I get to do during those calls is 2 things. I get to help make sure they understand that step, right? They're going to use this the rest of their career. And then I also get to help them succeed with their change. So this is like a case study. They're actually fixing their biggest business problem as they're going through the program.
Love it.
Right. So what, you know, and what I found is that we can get it done. Like in 4 weeks, people are getting amazing results. Sometimes they're launching their change before they even finish the 4 weeks because they're sure now what they need to do. Most people are seeing like 5, 6, and even 7-figure gains within just a few months of finishing the program. 2 of my clients have sales that are up over 20%, and they've grown by more than $1 million in the less than 12 months.
Yeah.
So, I mean, your results differ depending on what you're working on. If you're working on, improving your culture or fixing something in operations, you might not see that order of magnitude gain in sales or whatever, but that isn't what you set out to do. You were trying to get rid of a problem or something. So different strokes for different folks, but that's what it had to. And so when I saw that working, that was when I knew I had to finish the book. And the program right now continues to be 4 steps in 4 weeks.
I love it. And it's funny, see, it's planning. The other thing you said, the 30 years, not an overnight success. Same thing. And it was funny when I share this story frequently when I started my business 22 years ago. So I sat down and I thought, well, I'm really good at teaching because I was always the #1 producer personally. But when I was a regional sales manager, right, and I had hundreds of people reporting to me, they were successful. Well, how did you do this, Con? So I knew I was good at teaching and because behaviors drive the numbers. If I could get you to change your behaviors, get that to stick, the numbers come, right? It's logical. Although people manage numbers, not the human, that's a problem. But it was funny. So I sat down 22 years ago and I said, well, why was I good? You don't realize what you're doing when you're doing it because you're doing it. You're just living it. And that was my job, to make people successful. And then when I sat down like you, I thought, oh crap, look at that. I have a process that I go through for that sales conversation, that communication piece of it, right? More than, I'm not really the systems end, I'm more of the face-to-face. So it's just funny that you said that too. It took me 20 years. And now over the past 22 years in business, I had 5 steps. I have it now into 7 steps, because if we could break things complicated and break them down like you did into those bite-sized pieces, it works. And the other thing you did that again, kind of fell into it maybe like you did, but I have videos with a workbook, and then they come to a group coaching call. So they learn the content. They have a homework assignment. It's short. I mean, the whole thing is short. And then they come to the 1-hour coaching, but now they have tangible, I tried this, it didn't work. I spoke with this client, this said this, that. So now we're moving the needle faster because they got the concept. They did the homework. Doesn't matter if it was right or wrong or good or bad, but then we're tweaking it during the coaching. And now they're off to the races, learn the next step. And it sounds the same thing. If we can micro grow people's skills, magic happens, because each micro step sticks faster because we've taken the complicated to simple, and simple works every time. So you said a couple of things in there that I think we mirror, even though we're talking kind of the same, but you deal with operations and other things where that's not my zone of genius.
Well, it works so well. And, I think your system is good. Your approach is good, because when people get to share what didn't work, they're learning from each other.
Yeah.
And so it's that mastermind group that helps so much. It's a great way to learn. And people, I wake up every day believing that people want to do well.
Oh,
right. That's one of my outlooks on life. I think that people want to do well, and they would if they could. When, this is one of the things I share in the course, is that it's important to understand human nature. And when you're trying to lead change, one of the things you run into is resistance, right? So you decide as a leader, okay, well, whether you're doing it enthusiastically or reluctantly, you're coming around, okay, this has to change. We can't do this anymore. We have to make this improve. And you run into resistance from other people. You said it in your opening, that change tends to breed or come with its own bucket of resistance. When people resist something, there's a reason, right? So people, what are the reasons? And I've looked into this because, change is my topic. And there's a fear of the unknown. Change means something's going to be different, and people fear what they don't know, right? Almost all fear is of the unknown, if you think about it. A bump in the night, you don't know what's down there, right? And so the whole thing. And also people they're reluctant, they wonder how it's going to affect them. And the presumption is that it's going to be worse, right? It's not going to be, this isn't going to be better, it's going to be worse. Every once in a while there's an exception to that, but those are the 2 cases. And so what I found is that when people will do what they do well, that's the lesson, right? People will do what they do well. So when people aren't selling well, it's not that they don't want to sell well, they just don't know how. and they can't even express what it is that they don't know because they haven't seen it yet, or they haven't experienced it, they haven't seen it work. And so, you know, when I see you smiling, I know exactly what you're talking about. So when people will do what they do well, the opposite is also true. So if somebody's resisting change, it's because they don't do change well. What if they had a really simple way to view change or to succeed with change, or it was something they actually look forward to doing? So when you think about changing lanes, we might have mentioned this in the first episode, but one of the like the secret sauce behind this approach is that nobody changes lanes to do worse, right?
That's
Who
right.
changes lanes to do worse? Nobody does. So when you view it, even as a team, if you start to view change as changing lanes, I almost all of my clients right now talk about, hey, we need to change lanes on that. And everybody kind of looks up and looks forward. They don't rail or roll their eyes and go, oh, great, here he comes again, right? They understand that a lane change means things are going to get better.
Absolutely.
Right? And if they don't, sometimes we change lanes and it doesn't get better, right? Especially when you drive in Baltimore, right? And then what?
Jersey, dude.
Right. And what do you do? You change back. And it's not like you're being flighty, but you know, it's that simple. So the bottom line there is that people will do what they do well. And if you can help them do it well, which is what you do, they want to succeed.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. Even if you take that misstep, you change a lane and it wasn't the right call, you still learned from it to say, well, we could take that off our list because it didn't work the way we thought, or our customers didn't want that, or operations, it didn't smooth things out. So let's go back. Now, what might potentially be the next step? But if we hadn't taken that step, we wouldn't know it was the wrong step. So we're still looking for that improvement. It's just the trajectory isn't always forward. You know that. Sometimes we have to literally take a step back to take a giant step forward. So changing lanes isn't always about moving left and right or front and back. It's movement. And I think movement is a good thing as long as we're learning from the movement and discerning what that really next viable step is. And if it doesn't work, having the resilience to say, all right, you know what, it didn't work, but holy crap, we learned this, this, and this. So now when we make this next step, we're not going to make those mistakes, and now we can, again, take that giant, potentially, instead of a baby step, a giant step. I want to ask you, with so far between the book and the classes you've been teaching and the coaching you've been doing and team building that you've been working with, are you seeing patterns that just keep coming up over and over and over again? I'm always so curious. And if yes, how are they shifting to get the results? And is that the same? You know what I mean? Like, or are you seeing variations? Just curious.
Yeah, there are some I guess you could call them patterns or some commonalities I'm seeing going through the course. And I'd love to study this a little bit. One of the course itself is really, it's a series of questions. It's 6 or 7 questions that you ask for each of these 4 steps. That it's a process of guided discovery. So I don't come to you with the answers. I don't know what problem or challenge you're dealing with, and I don't know exactly what the right solution is going to be coming in. It's not like I'm a soothsayer, right? But through asking questions or having you ask yourself questions and then having somebody help you persist to the right answer, you're going to get the clarity, the certainty, the confidence that you need, and the wisdom of the crowd, the people around you, because that's one of the ways you build support is you get people involved, right? You make good decisions that people are enthusiastic about, that are highly likely to succeed, and you proceed through to the finish line. So there's a little more to it than that, but that's the nutshell, right? So what I'm seeing is that when people go to answer these questions, they don't know the answers. They don't know them all. They have an idea, like they can tell you what they want, but they can't give you a good description of why they are where they are or what's wrong. Or they know everything about that. They can tell you every pain point and every issue and what's causing it. But when you ask them where they want to be instead, it isn't crystal clear. Or when they answer it, it's a short 2 or 3 word sentence, and then I have to drag it out of them. So one of the first patterns is that people don't go far enough when they're thinking about this. And that makes total sense. So one of the things that I share in the book is that as business leaders, we have systems for everything. We have systems to generate leads. We have systems to convert them to prospects or to clients, right? We have systems to keep them on board as customers. We have systems to track our SEO, to get our social media posted, to do payroll, to pay our payroll taxes, to do our books at the end. We got systems for everything, right? What's your system for leading successful change? And I have never gotten an answer to that. There's almost always dead silence and an empty thought bubble above the person's head. And that's why I'm offering this program, because we just have never been taught that. I don't remember ever going to a course in school or business school or anything that said, here's a reliable way to lead successful change. By the way, all progress requires change. So don't miss this course, right? It should be a requirement, right?
You would
We
think.
don't have it. Well, what do we do instead? Because change happens all the time. The challenge with change is that and this has been studied by Forbes, McKinsey, Harvard Business School, the change efforts in business struggle or fail more than 70% of the time. And it's because we rely on our experience and our instinct. Now, we've developed those things over years, depending on how long you've been in business, right? We've learned to trust those things, or we trust them as much as we can, but that's where uncertainty kind of comes from.
Mm.
But when we trust our instincts and experience, we don't have those answers wrung all the way out. We don't have somebody asking us, just like a mentor could ask you those questions, or a coach could show you something you don't know about your own performance, whether you're swinging a bat or kicking a football or whatever it is, right? So the pattern I'm seeing is that people's answers are incomplete or somewhat misguided. And I enjoy that part of the program, the coaching part, because it gives me a chance to help people in a wide variety of industries. And what I'm seeing common situations largely wrapped around incomplete thoughts, which lead to fickle results, right?
Absolutely.
Communication issues where they're taking communication, they're not thinking it through enough to get the people involved that they need to have involved. And when this is one of the things one of the slides in the program is that poor communication is at the root of every problem. And so the communication piece of it is typically runs people awry. And then the other thing is that they either get off to a slow start. They don't think about everything that they need to do to get a good start, or the bigger sin is that they don't finish, right? So there's either shiny object syndrome, or they run into some challenge they don't have an answer for. And that's what the program has you anticipate that. If you're changing lanes in your car, I can't say it never happens, because I see it. People go to change lanes, they don't finish, they get over there and don't speed up, right?
Yeah.
They didn't think it all the way through. They didn't think, well, when I get over here, I better go faster, right? Or I got to go all the way. So those are kind of some of the analogies of what I see in the program: incomplete answers, incomplete or inconsistent communication, and then either soft starts or soft finishes.
Yeah. And it's interesting because we don't know what we don't know. We all have blind spots. So when I start my programs, whether it's live or virtual, I always say, what do you want to get from the program, or what do you want to get from today's time with me? Make it personal. I always say, make it personal. You have me. I have 40 years of experience. What are you trying to work on? And I get people say, well, refresher. I go, not good enough. Tell me what it gives you the knot in your stomach, right? I don't use the word pain point. I said, what gives you the knot in the stomach when you're face to face with the client? Where do you feel like you glitch? And I'll get things like, well, I just want to get better at communicating. Okay, give me an example where you felt you weren't communicating well. And I ask, and you start to see them get frustrated. And I said, but if I don't understand what you're trying to achieve, I can't help you. So you're giving me these vague answers. My job is to dig deeper. That's sales, and I say, you see what I'm doing? You should be doing this. I'm living my life, people, right? But you should be doing that with your clients, because people give you these very quick answers. But what does it mean? What your filter is hearing and seeing could be very different than what your client is actually meaning or saying. So it takes time. So that lack of clarity, I see all the time as well. So that's just fascinating from your perspective. The other thing that you said with the finishing, the following through, I think sometimes we're put in a position where the boss comes to you, I need you to do this, I need you to do this, I need you to do this. Yesterday, that was the priority. Now this is the priority. So if we're going through change as an organization, or even as a division or a department, and you keep throwing things at me, you're not allowing me to finish or build the skill or the momentum to make an impact, because I feel like I'm always in drinking from the fire hose, or I'm always putting fires out. So from a leader's perspective, this is so critical, because you've got to give people a chance to learn and execute and actually build momentum before you add the next piece of the puzzle or the next change. But you see, I'm sure I see it all the time. Oh, we're shifting gears. And the employees say to me, Con, it's like every other day. What's the flavor of the month? What's the trajectory? Leadership needs to figure that out. So if we're unclear as leaders, our employees are going to be unclear. How are you moving the needle forward? Right there, it's a mess.
Exactly right. You're
Yeah,
exactly right. And
yeah,
I've had so works for business leaders at all levels. I've had
absolutely.
owners, founders, CEOs, presidents, vice presidents,
Yeah,
regional directors, general managers, and even junior managers coming in, right? And so when I'm working with a lot of these middle managers, junior managers, even general managers, they will gradually reveal exactly what you just said. Well, things are changing around here. We didn't get a chance to finish all that. And one of the ways this works is that as the coursework, there's a little bit of coursework that goes with it. So for each of the steps, there's 6 or 7 questions like I talk about. I have them share that with whoever they're reporting to. And it helps them gain perspective. It gives that leader a chance to help the person that I've sent to them with broaden their perspective. They learn now, what they should think and see. It's an awareness builder, right? It's guided discovery. But then the boss sees that this is what it takes to finish. And I go and have them, arrange are these this, because we literally go over in the last step of step 4 is the last part of it, is to what are the steps to finish. And if the boss pulls you off of that, then you go back to them and say, well, so this is what we agreed I was going to finish. Are you saying you don't want me to do this? Right. So instead of being trapped or frustrated or overloaded, you'd say, we still have these things. Is this your priority now? Do you still want me to finish what you had me start? It's more a matter of fact. It's not just this, you're being heaped on with too much stuff to do. And the answer might be, yeah, we're going to pause on that right now. Let's hop to this. But then you got to straighten the way you can, like people that have done this program or have used it can go back in less than 2 hours on their own. They can work through an entire transformation that they want to make happen and have pretty good set of answers. When you go from step 1 to step 2 to step 3 and 4, I have you tighten up that goal. Just that example you were giving was perfect. Well, what do you want? No, what do you really want? So I call it packing a snowball, if I can mix my metaphors. When you start a snowball, if you don't live far enough north like Connie and I do, then you might not know what I'm talking about. But you pick up a bunch of snow, and it's maybe it's probably smaller than a basketball, but it's still pretty big, and you start squishing it down, right? And the more you pack it down until it's ready to throw. And it's the same thing with your goal. When you take a look at what people put down as their goal, with their objectives and why in step 1, by the time they get to step 4, where they've redone it 2 or 3 times, it's so much better. It's so much tighter. It's important for 2 reasons. One is it gets it clear in your mind, right? And it's gotten tighter, not partly because you've thought about it, you've been asked about it 2 or 3 times. Well, can you say that better? Can you do it better now that you looked for options and risks in step 2, what would you say your goal is now? And you tighten it up a little bit. But so not only do you understand it, you've got that clarity, but you can explain it to others in a way that's tight, concise, understandable, and it compels action. So that process. That's another, like, to your question about what am I seeing as trends or consistencies, that's happening throughout. They're invariably tighter at the end than they are in the beginning.
To think about that too, we want to make, and I'm going to talk sales, right? So we want to make more sales. That's my zone of genius, right? If I'm not clear on what the customer actually needs, I'm going to get objections. If I'm not clear about how to articulate back to them how my solution is going to get rid of whatever the issues are, situation is, right there, it's muddied water. People, when you're sharing muddy water with someone, they're going to be like, hell no, I'm not drinking from that. They're not going to buy from you. So, at the core, this communication is so critical because we are not taught we're taught how to talk at each other.
Yeah.
We're really not taught how to speak with each other. And when I say that, it's to create that clarity of that back and forth. So when we get to the end, in my case, right, to ask for the business, the client is already there. They're like, yeah, how fast can we do this? Because it's clarity. They know what their next action is to buy from you, hire you, whatever the situation. We make it really hard on ourselves by not doing what you just described.
Well, and what is successful sales but changing lanes? You're getting your client to change
Amen.
lanes from whatever they weren't doing or didn't have to what they will be doing with your help, or what they will have with whatever it is that you're selling. And so you're just encouraging them to come over here and life gets better. You're solving problems. Like who buys things to make their life harder or make their life worse, right?
Right.
It's the exact same analogy. I mean, it struck me as we were just talking just now. And so the process is virtually identical.
Yeah. But see, it's simple. It's simple. People are listening going, oh yeah, I don't know how to do it. And that's okay, right? That's why people like you and I are out there, because we've been doing this for so darn long. It's part of our DNA. We don't even think. And I'm sure you get this. People ask me a question, Connie, I have this objection. And I'll say, okay, so I'm going to tell you why you got that objection. You messed up on step 2 of my process. And get tighter with blah, blah, blah. And then that'll eliminate the objection. And they look at me and they go, how do you know that? I've been doing this so long that trust me, what you just asked, I've done that mistake 20 times before I learned not to do it or remedy it or whatever. But we've been doing this so long that people have blind spots. They're called blind spots because we don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And as we're talking, I'm hoping people are going, holy crap, that's where I'm messing up. I don't have that clarity of my goals. How do I know what that next step is, or whatever I'm doing with my team? And I just want to share with everybody, you're my guest, right? I love you. This is the second show. Tim, this podcast, the first podcast, actually, I'm a faculty member for Financial Leaders Institute, because most of my clients happen to be banks and credit unions. And I'm one of the faculty members teaching change management. And after I met Tim, right, Tim, I said, holy crap, I have to not only share the book, but I have to have them listen to this podcast, because these are upcoming leaders that are making a difference within their organization. The company is spending money to let them go through this program, right? I want the best resources for them. And after I met Tim, I was like, dude, can I use you? And he was like, sure you can. Use and abuse me, Con. But this is what I'm saying. When you find the quality and depth like you of 30 years doing this, it becomes a no-brainer of, this is so logical and easy. I need that as a part of, in my case, as a faculty member in this program. So we're out of time, Tim, but you and I could talk, because philosophically our approach is spot on. You just, you deal more with other divisions. I deal with the sales divisions. But I think philosophically, change is change. We need these tools and resources and thought. It's more about a thought process and how to execute, so we could do it faster, smoother, easier. And the trajectory of the change happens faster, but even more exponentially better, whatever that means, right? Depending on what the changes you're experiencing. Yeah. My last question, because I do want you to share with people what is upcoming for you, because I think you're brilliant. So what's next, and where are we taking Changing Lanes from here for you?
Well, I'm so excited to have the book out. I mean, my priority at this point is to make the Changing Lanes approach available to as many business people as possible, and that I want to do that with the book. I'm glad to do this with podcasts like yours, where I can reach your vast audience and help people understand that there is this thing out there that they can find. I have my online VIP coaching program I was just describing, and I enjoy that. I put dozens and dozens of business leaders through it. Sometimes their entire leadership teams come through it after one or two people have been through it, and yet I have a limited ability to, there's a limit to how many people I can get to in any given month or year, right? It's a small group thing, but I enjoy the ones that I'm getting through that. One of the things I'm working on right now is a digital version of the course that would be available in video format along with the coursework, so people could do it at their own pace. If they want to crash course it in a day or a weekend, they could do that. If they want to take their time and do it over 3, 4, 5 weeks, like we do with the VIP program, they can do that. And that's going to take a few months for me to get out yet, but those are really the 4 ways that I'm looking to help get it out there. Probably do some speaking engagements as well, if anybody wants somebody to come and talk about about change and how all progress requires change and an easy way to get there, I'm available for that as well.
Yeah, I love it. And your disposition and how you articulate things, it's so simple. We make it complicated. And
No
that's
question.
humans, right? Well, I can't do that because we're very good at making the excuses. But if I could streamline and make this so simple where people go, wait, what? I can do, I could, I could do that. That's easy. There, sign me up. It's when we make things difficult that change becomes this obstacle instead of that opportunity forward, right? And that's really what we're trying to help people do out there.
Well, people will
Tim,
do what they do well. And if you can make it easy for them, if you can help them to do it well with a
yeah,
simple approach that works, that's reliable, that they can use over and over again for the rest of their life, then
yeah.
they don't hesitate. They don't rail against change. They actually look forward to it because they know they can nail it.
Well, yes, because they're locked and loaded with this, with the steps forward, clear with clarity. It's all about the clarity, right? Of what is my freaking next step, Connie or Tim? Like, what do I got it? And then as soon as they go, oh yeah, I could do that. Oh, I could do that again.
I mean,
Rinse and repeat.
how much fun would driving be if you couldn't change lanes? You're stuck in
Oh,
whatever, you just get one shot, right? And that's it. And you can't like, right?
I'm
So
a very aggressive driver. I know you're surprised by
it's a
this,
shocker.
but let me tell you, I tell my husband all the time, I need a laser beam. When people park themselves in New Jersey, you're supposed to stay right, go left, and they go in the left lane. There's such a hurry to cut me off. And then they go 40 miles an hour in the 65 zone. Give me a laser gun. I need to zap them, and they deserve to be zapped. That's the Northeast, kids.
Yep. I'm very familiar.
Now, anybody that was thinking of hiring me, they're like, she's a little violent. I don't know that I want to hire her anymore. Right? Everyone, let me share some contact information for Tim. Everybody needs a little more Tim in their life. Email Tim at changinglanesapproach.com. Lanes is plural. Website, changinglanesapproach.com. Free gift is Resistance to Change Guide. Just share quickly what they get with that. I'll put the link in the show notes.
Yeah, you asked about common threads, and one of the things that comes up, I don't know why I didn't mention this, but one of the things everybody runs into is resistance to change, right? And and so it was so consistent that I actually created a piece that this leader's guide to overcoming resistance to change, and it's got 5 solutions that anybody can use. You don't need all 5. You might just be one for you, but it's actually like a 12-page PDF that you can work through and answer some questions, and you can figure out exactly what you need to do to overcome resistance that you're encountering to change, whether it's with yourself or with members of your team, your boss, or your customers, whatever. The answers will be in there. And if they're not, I want you to, my contact information is there. I want you to come and ask me.
Yeah, I'm going to use that when I teach my class also,
Yeah.
because we have content, right, that we've created, but these relevant and updated resources, the more, because you never know what's going to resonate with people too, right?
Yeah.
So this to me, the book and the guide is a no brainer. So thank you. I'm so happy.
My
It was
pleasure.
just timely how we met as well.
It really
And
was.
that you were launching the book. And, for me, I'll be teaching the class in January of 2024, but it was just, the timing was just so perfect. So thank you. Really
My
excited about the
pleasure.
whole thing.
My pleasure.
Thank you, my friend. As always, a joy. And I hope you will join me weekly as we question, build, and discover together, no matter where you are with change in your life, and you fill in the blank because you know what's happening. I really hope my guests and I provide those tips, strategies, ideas that you can take immediately and apply into action. So the call to action here today is download that information that the link will be in the show notes that Tim has created, and just start there. Look at his website, buy the book, man. The book is brilliant, and the parable makes it a lot of fun. Have your team read the book. Again, how can we create change with ease? Here are a whole bunch of tips and strategies for you immediately after listening to the show. So go buy the book. That's my tip. That was my sales tip. Go buy the book. Tim, thank you again. And thank you all for joining me and listening to Enlightenment of Change with me, your host, Connie Whitman, on webtalkradio.com. I truly am honored to have you on your journey of change, and that you tune in each week through change makes me very, very happy, because I feel like you're getting value. And my guests and I, that's what we want. We truly want to be the wings, the wind between the wind under your wings, right? To help you fly and flourish. We have one shot, man. Let's make it a good one. Make it a good life, good business. I love you all. I will see you next week. Have an inspired week. Take one tip that Tim gave, go buy the book. Trust me, it could be life-changing for you. I wish you the best. Thanks
Thank you,
again.
Connie. Mhm.